leave it to Overlord to find a way to be oddly wholesome as a character staring off at a city that's about to be sacked, completely massacred, and you just have this adorable bundle of evil saying, you know what, I can do this, as the evil characters behind them just are cheering them on like hip hip hooray, you can do it, go slaughter them, you don't have to think you don't have the confidence to do it, you can do it, Mare, go ahead and do it, and I'm just sitting here like, leave it to Overlord to create a scene like that, because really, I think I can only compare that to other Overlord scenes, and that's part of the beauty of this show. There was so much to like about the final episode of Season 4. Obviously, we know we have the movie coming up. I imagine it will probably be next year, if not the year after that. I doubt it will be any longer than that, which would probably make it the shortest break between Overlord content to date. But I like the fact that there's so much payoff, but it still feels like, even with like the final message at the very end of the episode, as the credits are playing, AINZ basically says like, well, I guess it was worth it if it basically makes sure no one will ever rise up against us. It really feels like the end is approaching for this story, right? And that feels so good because of everything we've experienced. And when you look at a guy like AINZ in this episode, when Climb is trying to launch his attack, he basically calls it out like, if this was a story, you would power up. You would have a secret move that would unlock in this moment and would solve your issues. But unfortunately for you, this is reality, and he literally kills Climb. Of course I knew he was going to come back, because there's no way this princess would allow Climb to fully be killed and not be brought back, because given the fact of the matter is, I mean, this princess she's the face of evil. She really feels like the craziest of bitches, and there's no way she wouldn't let her pet Climb come back and basically be indebted to her and most likely the Lord and Savior AINZ himself. But it was crazy to see all the moments. I'm so glad that they decided to give us some Philip justice. I mean, I wasn't expecting it this season. I was expecting eventually we would touch upon if he would get punished in some way. And I love how we don't even see what happened to him. And we've seen some brutal shit happen to characters. So the fact that we didn't get to see what happened says it's probably worse than anything our imaginations can come up with. And the fact that his present was just the 3 severed heads, and just the fact that she was so pissed off that you just even decided to go this direction. It was insane, because even in his drunken stupidity, he's still trying to say, you know, I was just trying to do what I thought was best. It's like, you can't do and commit a crime that causes an entire kingdom to basically get destroyed and just blame it on, well, you know, I thought I had good intentions, I guess maybe they weren't, and think you're going to get out of way with this one kind of scot-free sort of a thing. But it was great to see the episode, because you knew it was essentially going to be a bloodbath. I just wasn't sure exactly what the big battle would be in this episode, because, I mean, we had last week, amazing, emotional, thought it was fantastic. But I was wondering, like, would it just be, like, a lot of shots of just the city being destroyed, burned, freeze to death? I don't know. But then to just see that Climb actually kind of stole the show, and Climb is the type of character who normally you wouldn't really bat an eye at, because he'd be the generic hero character that, as AINZ says in this episode, would power up and save the day. But I think what's always made Climb fascinating to me is that he's never started out as, like, a completely different character that you've never seen before. But it's more about the perspective we have of this story, and how, if you look at, as an example, the princess, the king, and Climb, that throne room little kind of conversation, right? You're basically talking about how, like, he wants to basically secure the crown and then hide it somewhere, also offering the princess his hand in marriage as basically a reward. In any other show, what would be happening here is you would probably have suspicions that you can't trust the princess, because in most stories you wouldn't realize she was a crazy bitch until maybe this episode or something like that. But instead, we're looking at it from, we know AINZ and what he's done with the princess in terms of how his hand has already secured the W. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But for Climb, he's very oblivious to a lot of those things, so watching his perspective, knowing everything that we do, it's almost like rewatching your favorite show, right? But this time, you get to see it from a different perspective, is kind of how it feels like, because we already know the outcome, we already know where different characters are connected, but for Climb, he doesn't know that in this moment, so to see him just rushing, and honestly, Climb made me proud. I mean, he's literally lost every friend, and it's kind of tragic to think about. I guess maybe Sebas is like the one friend left that you might be able to consider he might be kind of acquainted with, so maybe it's kind of a friendship there. But I mean, all of his human companions have been killed in some way, shape, and form, and to see him, like, charge in, you knew he wasn't going to deliver the final blow. This is the sword that has the potential to kill AINZ, and we know AINZ is probably going to get it in this battle, in this moment. But it's crazy to see the direction they go and the kind of the facade they put on, the little puppet show that was going on to make him feel like, you know, the princess was forced to kill her father, and then the reason she kind of turned crazy and evil is just because she had to make a deal with AINZ so that he would be brought back. The poor bastard laying in bed at the end of that is just, he's crying, he's shitting his pants, he doesn't know what the hell to do in that moment. And all he can do is say, yes, yeah, I guess I am gonna just submit my loyalty and just do what I have to here. As then you have this girl just dancing and singing the craziest of songs. The lyrics to that song she was dancing to, any other show that'd be a more romantic ballerina dance or something like that. No, this is just evil. Just the face of evil and crazy mixed into one, and you gotta love Overlord for that type of content. Like, the battle itself wasn't anything crazy or anything as interesting as previous battles, but I think what makes it so great is that for Klein, he knew he was gonna die in that moment, but he couldn't leave the princess. He couldn't just run away with his tail between his legs, so he did everything he could. And the rage and the ferocity, just everything about him, it just made you proud even knowing that he wasn't gonna win. I just thought maybe potentially, like, he wouldn't die in that moment and there'd be a way that the plan would execute to basically force his hand to submit. Instead, Grasspart came in clutch, that is, and ultimately we see where the end result was. But it's pretty great. There was so much about this that just felt like it was a nice bow to tie up Season 4, and I mean, Season 3 ended in such an explosive way. Season 4, I feel like, ended in a way that makes the explosiveness of the prior season just seem pretty small in comparison. And even though this episode definitely had some rough around the edges moments in terms of a lot of static shots that were just not that great to look at, there was a wide frame at one point when they're, like, prior to the battle starting, where it just kind of, like, slowly moved across the screen. But I mean, here's the thing, this season of Overlord, I'd argue, is probably the most consistent visually, and we're reaching the end of the season. It's pretty normal for shows to have some rough spots and focus on the key areas so they don't look too bad if they are struggling. And overall, I think they did a hell of a good job both with the pacing of the content. I really felt like I got to experience a lot of these things a lot slower than maybe in earlier Overlord content, where you could really tell it was a little more fast-paced, but even with that said, it was still great content, so it was hard to get mad or anything. But I just felt like Season 4, it did exactly what I was hoping it would do, but then quickly did so much more I wasn't expecting, which made me fall in love with this show even more than I already did when I binged the 3 seasons in anticipation for Season 4 here. And I'm very excited to see what the movie's going to do. The arc that kind of happens a few episodes back, or at least chronologically a few episodes back, but obviously the anime wanted to end here and have the movie cover that content. So whenever it does get, like, official English subtitles that aren't Google translated, I will absolutely cover the Overlord movie. It's just a matter of when we get it, and I'm excited to see what they decide to pull. But thoughts and feelings, and what did you think of the season overall, and some crazy-ass moments that we did get here? Do let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.